We all just sit around and wait for 4 years to go by and see the Olympics once again. But do you ever wonder about the past Olympics and even the politics involved with something that is supposed to be fun? Politics has an impact on almost all the Olympics of the past. Politics affect everything when it comes to the Olympics, even the ways that people interact with one another. Politics and wars that happened in the past helped shape the Olympics into the multimedia sport happy time that it is today. The Olympics that we're focusing on today are through the 1930s to the 1959. The first Olympics are the 1932 Olympics, which were held in Los Angeles, California, USA. These Olympics were held in the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. There were 1,300 athletes in total. There were 1,206 men and 126 women. 37 countries in total participated in these Olympics. There were 14 sports and 117 events. These games were held during the worldwide Great Depression because World War I ended only a few years before the games. Many nations and athletes were not able to pay to be able to participate and watch the games, which is why the number of athletes is so low. During this year, the victory podium was used for the first time. The games only made a profit of around $1 million, which is very low considering that these are the Olympics. Everyone goes to Olympics basically, because that was the only thing to do back then. Since the economy was still in the Great Depression, they used things around Los Angeles to use as venues, so that they did not have to build any new buildings. Sometimes they even used highways for the events. During this time, it was also not as common to see women participate in sports, which is why only 126 women out of the 1,300 athletes in total participated. The next Olympics is the 1936 Olympics that were held in Berlin, Nazi Germany. These Olympics were held in the Olympia Stadium in Berlin. There were a total of 3,963 athletes in total. There were 3,632 men and 331 women, which is an increase from the year before of about 200 women who participated. In total, there were 49 countries that participated. There were 19 sports and 129 events. During this year, the sports of basketball, canoeing, handball, football, and polo were added to the program. These games were used for good propaganda for Germany. Germany wanted to look as though it was the dominant and most strong country out of them all, even though they were going through their own struggles. They wanted to look happy and wealthy, even though their country was pretty much the opposite of that. The US and Europe tried to boycott the games, but failed in their attempt. They wanted to boycott because they knew that something was going on in Germany. Jews and other religions that did not fit into what Germans thought was the dominant race were not allowed to participate in the Olympic Games. Germany even expelled some people that had already competed before, and in some cases even won the Olympics. During the weeks of the game, advertisement and anti-Jew posters were removed so that Germany looked like a more peaceful nation. These were the last Olympics held before World War II. The 1940 Olympics that were supposed to be held in Helsinki, Finland, were canceled due to World War II. These Olympics that were canceled were only the second time since 1916 that the Olympics game had been canceled. 1944 Olympics that were supposed to be held in London, England, were also canceled due to World War II, which would end shortly after 1944. The 1948 Olympics in London, England, were the first Olympics held after World War II. These Olympics took place in the Empire Stadium in London, which we know today as the Wembley Stadium. There was a total of 4,104 athletes. There were 3,714 men and 390 women, which is about the same as it was in 1936. There was a total of 59 countries involved in these Olympics. There were 17 sports and 136 events. During this time, people thought that men were more dominant over women. So that is the reason for more men participating in the Olympics throughout all the years that I focused on. The 1948 Olympics were known as the Austerity Games because of the fragile economy, and everything was being rationed during this time because of the aftermath of World War II. London was earliest selected for the 1944 Olympics. These games helped the world reunite after World War II, and it relieved the people of the world. Germany and Japan were not invited to participate in these games because they were the opposing powers of World War II. The Soviet Union was invited to these games, but they chose not to come, and they decided that they would wait and they would prepare for the 1952 Olympics instead. The athletes' rations were increased from the average 2,600 calories a day to 5,467 calories a day. Israel, a mostly Jewish country, did not take part of these games because they were fighting their own war of independence. The 1952 Olympics were held in Helsinki, Finland. Finland was supposed to hold the 1940 Olympics, but obviously they could not because of World War II. In total, there were 4,955 athletes. Out of that, there were 4,436 men and 519 women. The year of 1952, almost 200 more athletes than 1948 that were women competed. There was a total of 69 countries, 17 sports, and 149 events in the Olympics that year. These Olympics were held in the Helsinki Olympia Stadium. These games were the first games that the Soviet Union had ever participated in because all the tension they had with other countries because of the Cold War. The People's Republic of China participated in the games for the first time as well. The Republic of China, aka Taiwan, were taken out of the games only a few weeks before the competition in protest of the People's Republic of China competing in the Olympics. The Soviets tried to use their competition and victories as propaganda for the Soviet Union by saying that every victory just shows how strong the Soviet Union really is. Germany and Japan were also invited to the games. The last Olympics of the 1950s were the 1956 Olympics in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. These games were held in the Melbourne Cricket Ground Stadium. There was a total of 3,314 athletes. Out of that, there were 2,938 men and 376 women. There were a total of 67 countries that participated. There were 17 sports and 151 events. These Olympic Games were held later in the year because the climate is different in Australia, and it needed to be warm for the Summer Olympics. They were held from November 22nd to December 8th, when usually the games are held from early August to middle August. Horseback riding events could not be held in the country, so they had to be held in Stockholm a few months prior to the real Olympics. That was the second time ever that this had ever happened. Many people did not want the Olympics to be held in Melbourne because it was going to be very cold in the northern hemisphere where most of the countries were from. Egypt, Iraq, and Lebanon were not able to participate because they were invaded by Israel, causing the Suez Crisis. Netherlands, Cambodia, Spain, Switzerland withdrew because the Soviet Union crashed the Hungarian Revolution. The number of athletes dropped from 4,925 to 3,314 because of all the people that dropped out. This year is one of the lowest years of athletes that participated in the Olympics. Hungary and the Soviet Union participated even though that they were both in war during the time. Throughout all these years, men and women started to become more equal during these Olympics. Even though the number of athletes might not be the same, they started to wear more of the similar clothing than what they did in the past. Puma was one of the most popular brands to wear during the Olympics for uniforms. The Olympics is supposed to be a competition full of love and joy, but when some countries are enemies, not allies, it causes the countries to be uninvited or even sometimes banned from the Olympics. Even though politics has done more bad than good for the Olympics, it has caused the Allied countries to form a closer bond with each other. The Olympics always has a big impact on every single country. The United States won all the Olympics in the time that I focused on until 1956 when the Soviet Union won. The politics in all these Olympics have helped shape what the Olympics have become today. Without the past, the future would never be as wonderful in the Olympics as it is today.